The Navajo Tale in the Beginning is brought to you by Not a Prophet.org, the place on the internet to find spiritual guidance powered by artificial intelligence. Coyote put all kinds of jewelry on himself, turquoise, necklaces, bracelets, and many other things, and then was decorated with a male black cloud as if it were clothing. He came from the east and danced over the top of the corn, then from the south, the west, and finally from the north. Each time Coyote did this, the corn began to grow until with the fourth time, the corn was full size. It was at this time it began to rain. Clouds had been made by the supreme sacred wind. Nowadays, when there is a mirage, it goes up into the sky where it turns into clouds. Their clouds then let the water out as rain, and then the water turns into a mirage once more. There are 4 mirage gods for the 4 directions. There are minor gods of the mirage who were born from these 4 main gods. After the creation of all of these things, the people lived happily and killed various animals for food. One of the chiefs married a woman and spent much of his time away hunting. When this man left to go hunting, his wife acted as if she were sick and said, "Take me to the shore of the river. I like to sit by the shore while you are gone." Every night when he came from hunting, she would call to him, "Carry me home." She was having intercourse with Otter Man while her husband was away. He was a handsome, good-looking man. She didn't care what her husband was doing with the food he brought back or any of his goods. She was really interested in this Otter Man. Her husband kept hunting, but finally he decided to find out what was going on. He came back from hunting early and watched his wife from a distance. Down the river came some weeds called letter 1, 9, Biota I, Na Yizzy, floating on the water. The woman jumped up, ran around, and began to sing. Out of the water came a handsome otter. He began to yell, and was having a good time yelling. The man and woman then had intercourse. The husband went home to his hogan. When evening came, his wife hollered for him to bring her home. She kept yelling, but he stayed in the hogan. She finally began to crawl home, and at last got there. When she arrived, she said, "Why didn't you bring me home? I kept yelling. Why?" After she crawled into the hogan, he grabbed a stick from the fire and hit her on the head and said, "Why don't you go back to the river and have intercourse with that man?" When the woman heard this, she jumped up and began to cry. She ran out of the hogan and went to stay with some of her relatives. This woman had no mother. Because of what this woman did, when a girl plays possum or sick nowadays, it hurts someplace and she wants another man. The gods did little about things like this, and women had intercourse with the sun, moon, petrified wood, and other things, which later caused the giant and other evil beings upon the earth. When the woman's relatives told the woman she ought to return to her husband for he supported her, she said, "He does not support me, but I support him. When he gets up in the morning, I cook him a lot of corn and food. He eats, and that makes him strong. Then he goes out and hoes the corn and hunts to bring in food. He doesn't even clothe me because after I have fed him, he feels strong and goes out and kills the deer. I tan the hides myself and make the clothes for both of us. I do not need a man at all." The women of the tribe agreed, and a great quarrel arose between the men and women. The men and women separated. This argument between the chief and his beautiful but unfaithful wife caused the separation of the sexes. Yellow fox, blue fox, and badger were also gambling and causing divorces, which was another reason for the separation. There was a large river which was difficult to cross. 4 large rafts were made called náłeh. All of the men, male children, and their goods were loaded into rafts, and they crossed the great river. Feist Man saw that all and everything crossed over the river. With the men were taken those who dressed as women, played like women, but had a penis and testicles, who were called náλeh or n-1ef, DLE. The men used these n-1ef, DLE, to have intercourse. These n-1ef, DLE had male and female sexual organs, and so could have affairs with both male and female. However, they did not have reproductive organs, and so could have no children. F. G. Father Berard Hale, in a personal communication, stated that in his 50 years on the reservation, investigations had found no true unveils, DLE. Homosexuals and perverts had been found, but not the true bisexual. In July of 1951, I had the opportunity of noting a bisexual, but could not ascertain whether male or female organ, or both, functioned fully. 4 of these men-women were taken across the river. The rest of the men depended upon these 4 for the grinding of corn and for intercourse. Some men stayed on the women's side of the river. They were blue fox, yellow fox, and badger. These 3 could not satisfy all the women, so towards the end of the separation, badger's penis turned hard and into a bone, and that is why it is like that now. Badger's defense is his penis, for it is hard now because of his intercourse with all of the women. Yellow fox and blue fox licked the women's hind ends to satisfy them. All 3 put their hands and other parts in the menstrual blood of the women, and that is why they have black mouths, hands, and bodies. The men had large farms and planted corn, tobacco, beans, pumpkins, and had plenty of food. The unveils, DLE ground the corn and cooked the meals. The women also planted these seeds, but their harvest was not as good as the men's. As time went by, first man would go to the women's camp and take away the male children as they were born. Many of the women, because of loneliness and hunger, tried to cross the great river and return to their men, but were drowned. As the women did not hunt, their clothes began to wear out. First woman went to first man and begged him to let the women rejoin the men. They were hungry, without clothes, and were lonely for companionship. First man said, "Very well, all will be forgiven and you can go back to your men. But I shall make a law. The male shall rule, and whatever your chiefs say, that must be done. If any other evil takes place, I shall send a flood that will destroy you." The females were taken across to the males, and they started to make new clothes from the skins the men had. Coyote was wandering one day and saw 2 water monster babies in some water weeds on top of the water. F.G. believes these to be the children of the hippopotamus. They looked like animals but could talk and were gods. There are some gods who look like us and others that look like animals. The gods looking like animals were gods of the animals who were to follow in later days: turkeys, owls, coyotes, and others. Coyote had stolen the baby son and daughter of the chief water animals or gods. The male is called water grabber, TXE_XOL_C_ODI, and the female mother water, BS. The parents of the children became angry and started a flood. First man and first woman realized certain things had to take place for the good of mankind. They knew that a new earth would be created by the flood. These 2 told Coyote to steal the water babies, for they wanted to go up to the newly be created earth. First man and first woman do have witch power. The first man, first woman, first boy, first girl, and Coyote are on both sides of good and evil. They do not cause sickness themselves. First man and first woman had a plan for the good things to take place in the future time, and not for sickness or bad things for mankind. Yet they are not perfect, for they set the ideal as to how to act, but turned around and did the opposite. The 2 water gods controlled all of the water, and when their children disappeared, the water on earth began to rise. These gods fought, for they had their children taken from them. For instance, if the government took your children, you would still fight back even against a great power. First man knew the flood was coming, so he sent a wind person to the east, 1 to the south, 1 to the west, and 1 to the north, to see if the flood was coming. There was fog all around the people, and suddenly the water appeared. The gods and animals had no place to go, and they did not know the reason for all of this happening. They did not learn until later that Coyote was the one who had caused this trouble by stealing the small children and hiding them underneath his arms. Bigochity had planted the mountains in the beginning, but they had been misplaced and did not look right. They were brought up to the new world because of this. At first all of the people climbed up the tallest tree, which was a pine, to escape from the water. It was not big and tall enough to protect all of the people from the water, So they climbed up the tallest mountain, Cisnagini, but still the water came closer. First man lived in a hogan, which was a real mountain, spinning mountain. This was also a meeting place for all of the people. When the water came closer, first man stuck a cane in the top of his hogan, and the people started climbing. They had Badger dig a hole in the top of the mountain to place the cane in, like a post, to hold it solid. This is all the digging the Badger did at any time. The cane had been made by supreme sacred wind, and he had placed it in the water. When the flood had started, the cane had been taken from the water, and first man placed it in his mountain. The four Begachades were no longer chiefs when the flood started. First man took over, and he was a good chief, and things ran smoothly. First man told the animals to gather food and all the seeds so they could go up the cane. The water is getting closer and closer. Let us go up and see if the water goes down. So after they had planted the cane, they gathered all the seed tops of the mountain's soil. From the tops of each of the mountains was gathered the plants, seeds, and other things created. The animals gathered all kinds of seeds. They gathered all the water weeds and plants created before. The 5-leaf vine and narrow grapevine were not gathered. These were forgotten. 4 years after the arrival of the people on earth, these 2 plants grew up from below through the hole. These 2 had been planted for the use of the medicine men. The 2 plants followed the medicine men up the hole, and that is why they grow so fast. As all emerged from the hole, first man said, "We forgot 2 medicine plants, but they will come up through the hole." Some of the animals carried seeds in their mouths, and that is why some have lunch boxes in their cheeks. Some carried seeds under their armpits. The seeds began to rot, and that is why armpits smell. Those who have this odor always acquire a lot of things. It is this way with the whites. Some of the other animals carried seeds in their throats, and that is why the voice box is so big now. There was a belt of water around the earth by this time. The water was rising, and the animals went up the cane. First man and Coyote, the leaders at the 6th layer of earth, had given the arrow to Locust and told him that he was to be the leader from the 10th level up through the cane because of the holes in his body. The arrow was given to him to beat the water animals above by putting it through his body. Supreme Sacred Wind told First Man and Coyote to tell Locust to do all of these things. Locust was to lead from the 10th layer up. They said to Locust, "There is something on top, so you can lead from then on." The Locust Man was a sharp, intelligent, and good worker, so he was chosen to explore the new world. He went up the cane, and was the closest to the joint of the cane. He walked up to the next joint as it grew. First man followed Locust, then came First Woman, First Boy, First Girl, and then Coyote. All but Locust of these 6 knew that Coyote had stolen the water babies. Male Turkey was the last one in the cane, and above him was Male Badger, Male Bear, Male Big Snake, Male Wind People, and all of the women. The turkey was hollering, "Hurry up, the water is coming." That is why the turkey makes so much noise now. The cane began to grow up into the sky as Supreme Sacred Wind said a prayer to make it grow. After the Supreme Sacred Wind delegated his powers over to the gods, down below, he did not have power over their powers, only in part. After the first day all rested, and that is why the cane had joints and there are layers on the earth. All of this time, as the people moved up the cane, the earth was being washed up by the flood until it surrounded the ladder. The cane was always above the water and the earth. The cane itself was like a ladder inside, for the joints were used as one uses the steps of a ladder. It took all day long to go up one joint in the cane. The cane was very large, about 15 feet in diameter. They did not plug the bottom of the cane, for it was waterproofed, and the water, like a well, began to rise around the earth and up the cane. Every day the people rested, and every day there was a different kind of soil laid on top of the other, previously laid earth. In the earth below had been created dinosaurs and all kinds of animals. These animals left their footprints in the dirt and mud or sand, came over them and hardened. During the flood, these were washed up and left in the various levels of dirt. At this time, the water from the seas around the earth came up and around the cane. Turkey was the last one in the cane, following the other ones up the ladder. He was very large then, and when the people were very slow, he would spread his tail and wings and stop the water from coming up the hole below. In the cane at the joint was a hole just large enough for the people to crawl through. The water was very high, and foam was on top of it. As he held the water back, the foam got on the ends of his feathers, and that is why they are now white. From the beginning, when the people had started off, all of the gods were bragging that they had taken something. At the 12th joint, Supreme Sacred Wind decided to search everyone. When they did this, they found that Coyote had 2 little animals hidden, and they now understood why the flood was taking place. First Man had told Coyote to steal the water animals' babies. First Man was thinking of the future time. It seems the whites are like First Man, for they tell what is going to happen in the future. First Man wanted everyone to go up into the air so that the earth could be better. The people would not have gone up in the air if there had been nothing in the future. At this time there was only one layer of earth of different colors. The soil had been thin, and nothing would grow very well. The joining of the thin dirt and water would make the earth thick. The new earth became different types of soils, and became different colored layers. That is why it is like it is now. There are different colors in the mountains, directions, trees, and clouds. Supreme Sacred Wind had said, "It is going to be a good world, and everything will grow." So when there were 12 levels of earth overlaid and 12 joints of cane, the gods realized that the flood would not continue unless there was a good reason, and they searched for the reason. If they had not found that Coyote had the babies on the 12th joint, the cane would have still kept growing until it reached heaven. Supreme Sacred Wind found that the gods were going to need the small animals, so he commanded that the gods take turquoise, white bead, jet, flint red stone, and a balloon oyster shell, and put them inside a white shell or white bead basket. It was then dropped into the water outside the hole by Locust. The turquoise and other gifts were left for the water god, and that is why these things can still be found in the ocean. The gods talked to the water animals and told them that these gifts were for them, and that the gods had to keep the small animals, for they were to be used at a later time. The animals understood, and the water from the hole receded. All of the gods took the little female and put her into the ground when they reached the top. A hole was dug, and all the gods blew the female into the earth. She was to be the one who would be in charge of all the water in the earth and its distribution, springs, wells, and other surface water. However, she was to be there for a certain job, and was not to control all of the water. The male water animal was put up into the sky, in charge of all the water there. The gods sent the male water baby into the sky by blowing him up, and he became a cloud. The little male was not to control all of the water, either, but was to have certain powers over it. It is Water Grabber who controls all of the water. When the gods had finished, First Man said, "It is going to rain, and that is how we will get rain from heaven and water from the earth." All of this time, most of the people were inside the cane. The water from the outside now went halfway down the cane. As the flood stopped, it began to rain. There is a rock at Gray Mountain that shows the rain marks at this time. The water inside of the cane stayed the same but later overflowed and became a lake in New Mexico. The Locust went up to the top of the cane, looked around, and saw an animal coming from the east. First Man and First Woman whispered to the Locust what was happening below in the cane, while he watched on top. If this had not happened, people would not whisper or speak in a low voice now. If a person speaks in a low voice, he is going after something like the Locust did at this time. The animal from the east had a white fish-like body and shot water up into the air whale. The fish wanted to know why he was up there. The Locust told the animal what had happened in the world below. The Locust said, "If you can do this, I will leave." He put the arrow, which belonged to him, through his side and heart. The Locust had these holes in the underworld. The animal could not do this. so he just turned around and left. From the south came another animal, and this one had a blue body, and the same things happened. The animal from the west had a yellow body. From the north came an animal with a black body. Each time an animal appeared, the same things happened, and the Locust was victorious each time. When the animals left, he commanded them to get rid of the water that was on top of the earth. He told each to go in the opposite direction from which they came and to make a channel for the water to drain off. These animals went in the opposite directions from the east to the west, south to the north, west to the east, and north to the south. Each animal let the water out from the mountains, and the water drained off to make the oceans. When at last the water was drained off, the earth was still very muddy. The Locust went back inside the cane and told the people that the earth was too muddy to live upon. The supreme sacred wind sent up the wind people and a Cutelstrokes, see, Hachiki who are like us, and they turned themselves into the wind, blowing upon the ground until it was dry. After all the people were upon the earth, Coyote remembered that he had forgotten something down the hole. He wanted to go back down the hole and find certain things he had hidden there. He left these things at the second layer or level of earth. He left them there to pull a trick on the rest of the gods. That is why the same things will happen to the future people. He had left down there his secret power, his witchcraft power. The rest of the gods did not trust him, and some went down the hole with him. The cane was empty of water at this time. Coyote went down and started all of the fires inside the earth. Coyote had secret power, and so the gods could not stop him from doing these things. So Coyote set a fire which spread through the earth, burning earth, rock, and everything until the whole earth was burning inside. Those who believe the Navajo story and live a good life will go to heaven. Those who deny and do not believe will go where the fires are, hell in the middle of the earth. This is true, for there are volcanoes and warm springs which come from out of the earth. Everything on the earth can be possibly burned. I believe this story is true and right, and I will go to heaven. F.G. It is to be used in future time. It was said, matches are made from this earth. The fire was started by Coyote striking two flints together. Coyote did not think of this himself, but First Man and First Woman told him to do it for use in the future time. Coyote was told to do this, for he was just a messenger, and did what he was told by these two gods. First Man and First Woman were given power by supreme sacred wind over life and earth, and the time when it was to take place. Many of the gods, supreme sacred wind, and others, went down with Coyote to find all of his secrets. When he had found all of them, he was standing on the right side of the shaft, and the other gods were on the left. They were all trying to get up the ladder first. If Coyote had gotten up the shaft first, this would have meant the introduction of death, disease, and evilness into the world as Coyote wanted it, and not as the gods meant it to be. Had Coyote gotten up the shaft first, there would have been much trouble in the world. He would have destroyed all the world. F.G. The gods knew this, and they tried to fix Coyote so that he could not move. Thus, they were able to go up the cane first. They could do this, for Coyote had less power than the other gods in certain ways. When the gods got to the top, Coyote said, "From now on, people will have to die, and people will have to be born." He took a stone and said, "If this stone floats or comes up again, then no one will have to die. But if it sinks, everyone will have to die." He dropped the stone into the water of the lake, which was by the side of the cane, but it did not come back up again. Someone had to die. 4 days later, someone disappeared. Everyone looked for 4 days, but could not find the woman who was missing. Someone said, "Go to the place where we came out." A man looked down there, and there sat a woman at the bottom of the hole combing her hair. She said, "From now on, when someone dies, he will have to come down here." There are 3 ways or places for the dead to go. Witches go to the north. If you know nothing about the Good Way story, you go below. And if you know the story, you will go to heaven. The person who dies by witchcraft, any person who kills another person or witches, will go north, and the gods will pick up the good persons, anyone who has good standing. Later, this last person will go to heaven. When a good person dies, it begins to rain or blow, and the person will go off by this. The woman who first died was the devil. People who go to the north and down the hole, both go to hell. The worst place is to the north. During the War of the Navajo, Pueblos, and Mexicans, a medicine man died. It was at a place called Ghost, calling, "Your name Sihachikidi, and now this man will throw rocks at you, and call your name if you should go by this place." The Indians were in the war and wanted to fight all of the time. They must have been crazy. F.G. There were 2 persons left where the cane was at, the badger and the bear. They are living there now, but no one sees them. There is a prayer used if you are about to die, and there is a sound in your ears like iron or steel striking. If you have this prayer, you do not have to go to hell. The badger, the male, is the husband of the bear, and he said, in the future days when people get sick and are about to die, if they will come to the right side of the cane, they will not die and will not go to hell. The animals will say to the people who come there, "It isn't time for you to die yet, so go back to earth again." This was what was told for use by the future people. They were put there in the beginning. You have to go to the right animal, the bear or the badger, or you will die. The badger is on the north, and the bear is on the south. If a person comes up, he will go and see both of them, and if it is his time to die, he will. If not, his spirit will go back to his house and come back to life. These are alive, but are not seen. These are death. These 2 agree as to where the person goes. The good people and the medicine men who have the power will be reborn. The spirit of you will go out and be reborn into small children. It is only the bad people and witches that will be reborn into animals. The first woman to die was originally on the good side, but she was the leader of death. She was the first Sihachikidi Ake Daskanai, and the chief one, too. She was called first dead. Coyote told the woman to die, for it was Coyote's idea. She died, and death was caused by Coyote, for he went down the cane for his secret power. If he had gotten up the cane first, everyone would have died, and he would have had the whole world to himself. The gods beat him up the cane, and he only talked one woman into dying. 4 days after the death of the woman, a male leader died. In 4 more days, another male leader died, and twice again in 4 more days, 2 leaders died. Thus, 4 leaders went down below to the woman. When the earth was still young, first man laid out the mountains that had been brought up from below. First man planted the black mountain to the east, the yellow one to the south, the blue one to the west, and the white one to the north. La Plata, Cisnagini, San Francisco Mountain, Docusli D, and the other 5 mountains on the other side of Navajo Mountain were then planted until all 11 mountains were planted as they are today. After this was done, Talking God, Black Mirage Rock, Blue Mirage Rock, Yellow Mirage Rock, White Mirage Rock, Turquoise, Jet, Abalone, White Bead Crystal, White Rainbow Rock, and letter 1 EAFT Zelit Lagai were laid out with the first mountain. Calling God, Blue Rainbow, and Blue Crystal were laid out with the second mountain. Yellow Rainbow, Yellow Crystal Quartz, and Talking God were laid out with the 4th mountain. With the 5th mountain, Zil Eni Macron Gamma Omacron Dia Breve Acute LT letter 1, E, 1-7, was laid everything of value, buckskins, all of the jewelries, but there was no god laid out with this mountain, or any of the remaining ones. 6th mountain is Standing Out Mountain, TSCH letter 1, E5, 3 Ella Gamma, a near reversible mountain, which was laid out with all the chips of stone. The 7th mountain is a continuous chain of mountains made up of Gray Mountain, Buckskin Mountain, Navajo Mountain, and others. No other Navajo have mentioned these as the natural boundaries of the Navajo. The other natural boundaries are the Big Colorado River female and the Little Colorado River male. After the mountains had again been made, the gods used the darkness to cover them. The mountains began to grow, and the gods sang to the earth, and it began to sing, and both began to grow. Here is a good way song that will show what a mountain song is. Mountain song, a mountain making a speech, lay it down. Lay it down, mountain La Plata, lay it down, white bead mountain. A mountain making a speech, lay it down. Lay immortal down, lay happiness down. A mountain making a speech, lay it down. Ts letter 1e, 5, 3d zil, lay it down. Turquoise mountain, lay it down. Turquoise mountain belongs with Ts letter 1e, 5, 3d zil, lay immortal down, lay happiness down. A mountain making a speech, lay it down. San Francisco mountain, lay it down. A Balone mountain, lay it down. Lay immortal down, lay happiness down. A mountain making a speech, lay it down. San Juan mountains, lay it down. Jet mountain, lay it down. A mountain making a speech, lay it down. Lay immortal down, lay happiness down. A mountain making a speech, lay it 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 down. All of the gods lived at East Mountain, while the people and animals lived in the middle of the world. After the people had gotten on top of the earth, Talking God began to figure out and decide the measurements to make the houses. While doing this, some of the people wandered away. These people built a hogan and a cover, and they began to gamble. These people were gambling with 7 flat sticks, which were thrown out of a basket. The cover they used is similar to those used to dry meat on top of poles in recent times. After the house was built, it was blessed with a prayer, and cornmeal or corn pollen was put on the supporting timbers from the east, south, west, and north. As this was done, this prayer was said: "May my house be blessed from my feet to my head, a future path in front of me, behind, under, above, and all around me. From my mouth may it be holy." The talking God came over to where the people gambled and saw what was going on, yet he was not angry. He said, "I see you have made a fine house, a hogan. Because you have made a fine house, you shall always be doing and having these things. The hogan and gambling." This he said to the gods of the Navajo, while the Pueblos, who had remained with him, received the nice house he was building. A place was needed for a meeting place to talk about what was to be done in the future, to cure disease, and for the purification of the people. Thinking about this, First Man decided to make a sweat house. The people did not know what to make the sweat bath out of, so First Man said, "We are close to where the beaver lives, so we will borrow some material from him." First Man went and borrowed some sticks from the beaver. Beaver was asked to get the wood, for he had an axe, his teeth, to cut it with. The beaver chopped down the trees and cut them into pieces to make the sweat hogan, just like a sawmill. The people then said, "There are no rocks here to build with." A First Man answered them, saying, "Beaver has plenty of smoothened rocks we can use." So they went to get water, washed rocks from Beaver. First Man went to Beaver, and this time got rocks to build the sweat hogan. Now the people did not know what to do for fire, so First Man said, "Go to Dotso, the fly who has fire." When they went to Dotso, he gave them fire. The people then asked, "Where can we get water?" And First Man answered, "Go and see Otter Man, and he will give you some." The people went to Otter Man with some clay or mud pots, and brought back the water and put them outside the hogan. First Man now began to build the sweat hogan. The wood was put up in the 4 directions. After the hogan was formed, all of the people brought dirt and piled it around and on top of the hogan with flat rocks. These people were afraid to invent a shovel or saw to cut down the logs, for they were superstitious. Wood and rocks were taken, and the people hit flint rocks together and made the fire. After the pile of rocks and wood had burned, only the rocks were left, and these were then placed in the center of the room. The people wanted to know what they could use to cover the door. First Man said, "Go ask your grandfather, the owl, and he will give you something." Owl said, "Yes, I have white, yellow, blue, and black colored clothes. You may have as many as you need." These clothes were really darkness, dawn, yellow twilight, and blue twilight. The cover was laid down with black or darkness on the bottom, blue next, then yellow and white. Although the people borrowed some of his flashing clothes, his feathers still flash like they do. Owl also had speckled feathers that represented flexible goods, but he kept these. From inside the hogan it looks dark, and from the outside the cover looked just like feathers. First man sang a song about this that goes, "It was the owl who covered the door. Have a cover for the door." This is one of the songs used to describe the building of the sweat hogan. The sweat house song he put it down, he put it down, he put it down, he put it down. At the edge of the hole, he put it down. The first man, he put it down. The song of darkness, he put it down. Property, he put it down. Chips of turquoise, he put it down. Immortal, he put it down. Happiness, he put it down. He put it down, he put it down, he put it down, he put it down. She put it down, she put it down, she put it down, she put it down. At the edge of the hole, she put it down. The first woman, she put it down. The song of darkness, she put it down. Immortal, she put it down. Happiness, she put it down. She put it down, she put it down, she put it down, she put it down. No wood, no wood, no wood, no wood. I went to Beaver Man. I talked to Beaver Man about the wood, and I got the wood from him. Then I built the fire for the sweat hogan, and then I made the house complete. I got the wood, I got the wood. No rocks, no rocks, no rocks, no rocks. I went to Beaver Man. I talked to Beaver Man about the rocks, and I got the rocks from him. I built that fire with the rocks to make the house complete. I got the rocks, I got the rocks. No fire, no fire, no fire, no fire. I went to Firefly. He gave me the fire, and then I completed the house. No fire, no fire,